Welcome to the Profitable Franchisees podcast. My name is Tracey Leak and I am your host. This podcast is all about bringing you powerful strategies and stories to help you to build a more successful and profitable franchise. So today's episode, you're with me today, and we're going to be talking about the 4 stages of hiring team for success, okay? So the number one complaint I get from franchisees oftentimes is, I can't find good staff, or I'm having trouble with my staff. I can't get them to do things. And, I'm a believer that prevention is better than cure. And so sometimes the issues you're having with staff stem from how you first hired them. Now, of course, there's lots of strategies we can talk about with leadership and ongoing strategies with your team, and we'll absolutely cover this in the podcast. In fact, I had a chat, and hopefully it'll be soon. I'm going to be talking to a franchisee who successfully has a lot of team and a younger generation of team, and we're going to be talking about that as well. So I've got some people coming up soon around team that I'm interviewing and talking with, but I just wanted to take that step back and go back to that initial stage of hiring your team, okay? So we can't necessarily change all the ones you've got currently, but we can certainly help you in the future to hire better. Now, that being said, team is the hardest bit because it's about people, and people are unpredictable. And a good team member today may not be a great team member tomorrow. I don't know about you guys. Have you ever hired someone and in the interview process, you're like, this person's amazing. And then when they've turned up to work, it's like they sent their evil twin to come and work for them rather than the person that you interviewed. So don't think that this is a surefire method strategy, because people are unpredictable. Things change, people change. So just realize that. But we're going to give it our best possible shot to give us the best possible chance for success. So there's actually 4 stages to hiring a new team member. So the first thing is you want to think about who it is that you need to hire, okay? Not just the roles and responsibilities, but who they are as a person. Who do you like to work best with? My first ever franchising client, she was in a beauty franchise, so a beauty salon, and we worked out that her best team members were actually more reserved. They were reserved. If you've ever done disc profiling, they were more S's and C's in their disc profile, but they were more reserved type of people who just were really stable. They like to just come in, do the same things and have it done consistently. They were quite a nurturer. And because anytime she brought someone into her team that was more outgoing, not only did that not work with her as the business owner, it actually upset her team of all these quiet, reserved, nurturing beauty therapists. So even when she was hiring someone, even if they had the best skills known to man in beauty therapy, they didn't fit her team personality-wise, so she didn't actually hire them. And this is where people go wrong oftentimes when they're hiring. They're hiring on skill rather than who they are as a person. Because remember too, skill, by very definition, is something that can be learnt. You can teach people the skill of your business. And sometimes it's actually better to bring someone in who's less skilled and train them to your way than to try and bring in the most skilled person who can't change to your way of doing business. So before you even start, sit down, pen to paper. There is power in pen to paper when you write things down. I won't go into the whole reasoning why of that. I work with Kumon, okay, which is the franchise brand, and they help students, young students, especially around maths and English, okay, to actually develop their skills. And they were talking to me because I always said pen to paper, and they actually told me the science behind it of, they get their kids, even if they're doing it on a tablet, they get them to use a stylus because there's a whole connection with writing things out, connecting to your brain. A little side note to our talking about 4 stages of hiring team, but get out a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil and write down who the ideal team member would be. What are the traits that you're looking for in this person? Not just their skill, well, what are their traits? Like, for me, I always look for people who are hardworking, that if a job needs to be done, they'll roll up their sleeves and they'll get in and do a job, even if it's not a part of their responsibilities. They don't mind to jump all in. I like people with common sense. I like people who have a bit of a sense of humour. Think about the traits you want them to have. I want them to be loyal. I want them to, work hard. I worked with a franchisee, and one of the things we discovered about their team was that their best team that they'd ever had in the past had been actually looked over or underappreciated in previous positions. So we actually wrote that down as one of their traits, that, you've probably been overlooked or underappreciated in previous roles. And that's something that we actually put into the job ad. And this is what I'm getting at. Once you understand who they are, this is stage one, really understanding who they are, you can write the best possible job ad and know where to put that, whether that be on Seek, or whether that be a Facebook ad, or be that on LinkedIn for the jobs, whatever it is. But instead of writing down the skills you need them to have, start with who they are as a person. Now, this is kind of funny because when they come into the interview or when they send in their resume, you want them to feel like when they read that job ad that they go, oh my goodness, that's me. When you do a profile test and it comes back with the results and you read it and go, oh my goodness, that's me. You've just described me. That's what we're looking for when we put the job ad out. It's like they've read their horoscope and gone, oh my goodness, that's me. We want them to read it and say, oh yeah, I'm absolutely hardworking. Yes. As I said, that one that we put in, you've been overlooked or underappreciated at previous positions. Because we knew who we were pulling out. We were looking for those quiet achievers who went under the radar, and that really appealed to them. You might say we're looking for fast-paced people who can think on the go, whatever it may be. Because just because you're in a franchise doesn't mean you all need to hire the same sort of person. This is a mistake a lot of people make. In franchising, you're all running a similar business, not the same business, because you're a different person as the business owner. You are different. So the type of people you attract might be different to a franchisee down the road, because you're looking for a different type of person to meet your personality or the rest of your team. So you started out with that, so the job ad might say, hey, we're looking for, this position. But you started off with, are you a hard-working, loyal person? Do you excel in common sense? In your previous positions, you have probably been overlooked or maybe underappreciated because you just quietly get about and do your work. You love working as part of a team, but you're more than happy to work on your own as well. You're a self-starter. You know how to get in and get a job started, but you also know how to complete the job. You work well with other people. Customer service is your jam. You love helping and serving customers to the best of your ability. You're a polite person with a happy-go-lucky nature. You'll always be found with a smile on your face. In stressful situations, you're not afraid to ask for help. Like, I've just made that up off the top of my head. But imagine if they were the traits you were looking for someone. This is how you get a better person to respond. This is the thing that people forget. They think that when they're putting out ads to hire people, that it's only people who are looking at it who are in the marketplace. There's a lot of people who are scrolling through job ads and they don't need a job. Like, they've got a position, they're okay. But if something better came along, they'd apply for it. If you just put in the roles and responsibilities, you're giving them nothing. You're not picking up that second tier of people who are not necessarily needing a job right now, but they would absolutely consider a new job if it felt better than what they've currently got. So I think that's why we use that line for that franchisee I had about, how you've been underappreciated in your current role. That brought out a whole stack of people who were not unhappy in their current position, but they would have been happier if they got something better, okay? And so they got more applicants, okay? We're just doing a numbers game. So stage one, understand who it is that you're looking to hire, and we're hiring on that personality, on their traits as a person, not just the roles and responsibilities. Absolutely in the job ad, start with that. Then in the next section, you might put in, here's the roles and responsibilities. This is what needs to happen. Like, absolutely, you can put that in, but don't lead with that. Lead with who they are as a person. As a little side note, something I always put on is, especially if it's an online site where they can just send in their resume, I always say at the bottom of it, on your cover letter, please send us your resume with a cover letter that answers this question. What was it about this job ad that appealed to you the most to get you to apply for the position? Because if someone sends me their resume without a cover letter, bang, done, they're not even getting interviewed. You can't follow basic instructions, okay? So by just putting that in, it's like a little test. And what we want to see when people are doing that is we want to see them putting things like, oh my goodness, when I read this, I realized it was me. Stage 2 is all around the interview. So stage 1, remember we were talking about who they are and writing that job ad to get the best possible applicants. Now in stage 2, it's all about going through their resumes and their cover letters and finding the people that you want to interview. Now, when you're interviewing, you can either do a group interview or one-on-one. Now, depending on how many people you have, if you have a lot of people and you need to do a couple of stages of interviews, you might start off with a group interview. It'll save you time. But if you're just interviewing some people, basically, half a dozen people, then I would go one-on-one, okay? Now, in the interview process, I want to set it up in a way that I'm giving the applicant the best opportunity to shine and show me who they truly are. Because we're looking, remember, for people who are going to fit into our team, who are people that are trainable. We can take them and create that skill. We can teach them that skill, but we can't teach them to be trainable. I was working with a franchise group and they have some technical aspects to their business, and it's in an industry that I really am not proficient at, okay? I was training them about business, not the technical skills of their business. And one of the franchisees was telling me about how hard it is to find good people. So we were talking about the same as what I'm talking about here is, who is the best person to find? And he was like, oh, I just don't know. And I said, okay, let's use this as an example. I said, imagine you hired me onto your team, me personally. I said, he had more than a year of experience in that franchise group. I said, you've got all the skills and the knowledge and the technical aspects of this business. I said, if you hired me, if I had to come and work for you today, do you confidently believe you could train me to be a really great member of your team? And he goes, yeah, absolutely. I said, so what is it about me that would allow that to happen? And he said, because you'd listen and you'd learn and you'd train. And I said, right. And do you believe you have the capabilities to train me? And he goes, yeah, absolutely. I could train you. And I said, so can you start to see you're trying to hire people who are already skilled in this area? And that's a really small percentage of people looking for positions. But if you find the right person, you could train them. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit extra time, but it's probably going to end up as a better person on your team. And he was like, yeah, it was like a light bulb moment. He had that. So really prepare for the interview. Think about, how can I allow this person to show me who they truly are? How can I discover if they're the right sort of person who's going to fit on our team? Because oftentimes when you're hiring people, it's a gut instinct where, especially if there's more than one of you actually interviewing them. And I always recommend have more than one person interviewing. You want, some different opinions. And when you're interviewing, sometimes you'll go, oh my goodness, that's the person, right? So when you think about it, set up your interview questions for that. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your favorite job ever, whether or not it's in our field. Just tell us about your favorite job and why that was your favorite. Tell us about things you enjoy doing outside of work. What do you believe around customer service? You can absolutely ask them some skill-based questions if you want to find out. And I often preface that and say, hey, tell me a little bit about your experience here, and don't panic if you don't have a lot. It just helps me understand where you're at now so that if you are the successful applicant, we know what we need to do to help you to train. And they might say, oh yeah, there's 10 steps to this process. I get stuck on step 8. You go, great, that's what we need to work on. I also think giving them like scenarios work really well. It was actually a franchisor who needed to hire someone in their accounts team. They had a lot of national contracts that the franchisees did, but all the invoicing and billing went through head office for this national contract because they didn't want to have to go per franchisee. So it was really important that they got these national contracts right. And so in the interview process, I suggested to the franchisor to ask a really simple question because we wanted to discover, would this accounts person do the right thing? Because oftentimes people working in accounts are oftentimes more introverted and they don't necessarily like to go out on a limb. So the question was, let's imagine in this scenario, you accidentally send an invoice to the wrong customer. Okay, they're confidential invoices. You accidentally hit the wrong email address and you send it to the wrong customer. What would you do? What we actually wanted that person to say, and when they did it, we went, yep, that's good. First thing we wanted them to say was, hey, I would pick up the phone, call that customer immediately and say, I'm so sorry, I've accidentally sent you the wrong email. Could you please delete that? It's of a confidential nature. Can you please just delete it? Don't read it. I made a mistake. And then they would then go, and then I would, and we go, no, that's it. That's all we needed to hear. We just wanted to hear that they had enough, gumption to pick up the phone and ring them and say, hey, sorry, made a mistake, and fix it straight away. All right. If any of the applicants said something like, well, first of all, I would come and see you, I would write this. It's like, no, that's too late. Pick up the phone and call the customer. Because that incident had happened in the past. Their customers worried that they called them and just said, I'm so sorry. I've sent you an email with the wrong invoice attached. Can you please delete that straight away? I'm going to fix that up right now. Okay. And send you the correct one. We all make mistakes. It was what we do with it. So think about how you can actually put them in a position where they can share who they are and put themselves in the best possible light. And you can discover their strengths, their weaknesses. Just because they've got a weakness doesn't mean it's a problem. You might have the best person personality-wise, but they've got some weaknesses in the skill. But if it's something that you can train them and help them with, then you need to have that confidence in yourself that you can actually develop that skill within them. So that's stage 2 is the interview and pre-preparing questions and thinking about it. You get better at this over time. You'll start trying new questions and you go, oh, that's a good question. I'm going to use that. But just think about who it is you want and what you need to discover about them. So stage 3, we've now hired someone. Okay, so we've done the application, everything else. And you think, oh my goodness, 4 stages of hiring. We've actually hired them. Yep, we've still got 2 more stages to go, even though now they've signed on the dotted line and they're getting started. So stage 3 is all about induction. This is probably one of the most crucial stages of hiring a great team, is what you do with them in that first probably 10 days to 2 weeks. You should have an induction plan. What do they need? Like the first thing you do is you don't just chuck them in and say, well, off you go. Actually understand that for their first 2 weeks, you need to induct them in the position. Tell them the rules of the game. Get really basic. This is when we take lunch. This is how we clock in. This is who your direct supervisor is. This is what you need to do. Really induct them. Have a plan. And over that 2 weeks, it shouldn't be just you inducting them. Think about, members of your team. You might try them with different people. You might try them on different things. A good rule of thumb when training people is what's called see one, do one, teach one. So in a previous life, I was a radiographer. Yep, that's what I did when I left uni. Okay, I used to take x-rays and do CT scans, all that fun stuff. And we used to talk about this principle of see one, do one, teach one. And it's really good, and I'll tell you why in a second. But so say you had to teach someone how to x-ray a hand. Okay, so the first one you did was the trainer did it and explained it to the trainee. Okay, so showed them how they were doing it. The second one, the trainee did it, like they were hands-on, but the instructor was helping them. So first of all, they saw one, then they did one, but it was with help. But the third one, they had to teach it back to the trainer. Now, it wasn't that they had to be perfect. What it did was it helped you to see if there was any missing links in your training. Was there something they didn't quite get? It wasn't them just going ahead and doing one without being instructed. No, they had to teach it back because it locked in their learning. So see one, do one, teach one. And so in 3 steps, you can discover if they've actually learnt it and if they're actually competent in it because they've had to teach it back to you. Now, from a behind the scenes level of why that works is that people have different learning styles. Have you ever heard of VAC? Visual, auditory, kinesthetic? Okay, this is how people learn. So people can learn visually by seeing. They can learn auditory by hearing, or kinesthetically, which is by doing. So by see one, do one, teach one, we're actually covering all 3 learning styles, and so nobody gets lost. If you just tell someone how to do something, you're going to lose your kinesthetics and your visuals. Kinesthetic people need to actually have hands-on. My best friend is highly kinesthetic, and we often joke, like if I had to teach her something on the computer, like something in a spreadsheet, we'd often say, oh, she needs to drive. Like she actually needed to click the boxes. She needed to hold the mouse and to do it. If I just showed her, it didn't lock in. She needed to do it herself. Whereas I'm highly visual. You can just show me something once and I can remember it and then repeat it and do it. All right? So only 20% of the population is primarily auditory. 40% is kinesthetic, 40% visual. You usually have more than one style. But by doing see one, do one, teach one, you're actually going to lock in the learnings. So it's in that induction period, all right? I always say like the rules of the game. So I'm in Queensland. Rugby is the major football code here. So, imagine I said to you, you've never seen rugby, you've never played rugby, and I say, great, we're going to go out in the rugby field. I'm going to, when the whistle blows, I'm going to pass you the ball. And what I want you to do is see that big H down the other end of the field? There's a line on the ground. I just want you to run down with the ball and put the ball down on the ground on the other side of that line under the H, right? The goal post. And they go, cool, can do that. Now, if you've ever seen rugby, the minute the whistle blows and I pass the ball to them, they will get tackled, okay? And not nicely. It will be a hard tackle. And this is what's happening in your business. You're not telling them the rules of the game. And so they're getting tackled going, what on earth's going on here? Nobody told me this was going to happen. You need to tell them the rules of the game because once they understand the rules of the game, we can have a whole lot of fun playing the game. We can score lots of goals. But you need them to understand what those rules are. So in that induction period, we're not only training them how to do the work, we're teaching them the rules of the game. We're inducting them into the culture of our business. We're starting to build that rapport with us. You shouldn't expect someone to just come in and work from the first second they start. You want to ease them in. How do we work? What do we do? Companies that take the time to induct people well end up with better employees. It's not rocket science, guys. Take the time to teach them well. If you want pumpkins, you need to plant pumpkin seeds. If we want a great team member, we need to plant some time in their training and induction. So stage 1 was all around who they are and getting the right job ad. Okay. Stage 2 is about interviewing them and getting them to shine the best possible light so we can find the right person. Stage 3 is all about induction. And those 3 stages you probably understood. Stage 4 is the one that most people miss. And that's what I call the next 6 months. What do we need to do with this person over the next 6 months to fully incorporate them into our business? Okay? We need to keep giving them ongoing training. Okay? We need to do check-ins with them, preferably one-to-one, just once a month. Stop, be a 10-minute check-in with them and just say, how are you going? And it's almost like coaching them. When I'm coaching people, I want to catch them doing things right. Okay, because that builds their confidence. 80% of your time should be focused on what they're doing right, and then 20% of your time fixing the things that we need to work on. So a good question one-to-one is, so what do you think you're doing really well at the moment? What have you really developed in your skills? What in your roles and responsibilities have you got nailed? Start with the good stuff. And then say, great, what do we need to do a little bit more work on? Where are you feeling a bit uncertain or you're not as 100% confident as you are in that area? And work on that. By checking in one-on-one, what you're doing is you're telling them that you value them, that you see them, and that you're encouraging them to be better. Who's ever watched that movie Avatar? And in that, it's all about I see you. The best thing you can do with team is to show them that you see them, okay? So really help them to do that. Another good little side trick is to have what I call an A to Z book. And it's almost like a little Bible of all the stuff that's just random that you don't necessarily know. Like, as an example, right? Toilets, okay? Where's the key to the toilets? Right, the key to the toilets is on a spatula that's held, on the cabinet in the office on this side. Make sure you bring the key straight back. So in the A to Z book, it's one of those books and it's got all the tabs, A to Z. You go to the T tab and it's like toilet key and it's written in there, okay? If they ask a question and it's not in the book, they add it to the book. So what's another example? Let's say toner for the printer. They might put it under P for printer. And it's like, they ask that question, hey, I've got to change the toner of the printer, I can't find it. And they go, oh, you need to order it from this company? And when you put it in the printer, make sure you tap it twice on the side so that it actually locks in. Well, if they've had to ask that question, they write it in their A to Z book. Because if you have team members who come to you and they say, I know I've asked you this question before, but I can't remember the answer. Okay, that takes up your time. It gets a bit frustrating. But the biggest thing is the team member feels stupid because they know they should know the answer to this, but they've forgotten it. But instead of now having to come to you, they can go back to their A to Z book and go, printer, toner. I know I've asked this question, I can't remember. So they go to their A to Z book, they go to P for printer, and it's all written in there, the answer. And the great thing is that A to Z book, it becomes almost like the Bible of your business because the next new person, you just hand the A to Z book to them. And over time, it just fills with all the information of stuff that you don't necessarily know. It's a great little tip to use in your business to help them. And, over time, you might formalize that more. You might find things that you need to add into your induction or your training. But our whole goal in that next 6 months is how do we get that employee to be as confident as possible in what they need to do? And we start to help them develop what areas they need to work on. So that's your 4 stages of hiring. Stage 1 is around job and who they are, the job ad and who they are. Stage 2 is around the interview, shining the best possible light on them. Stage 3 is that first 2 weeks of induction. And stage 4 is all around that next 6 months of really locking them in. You do those 4 stages well and you're giving yourself the best possible chance to develop a team to be awesome on your team. The great thing is your team members will not only fit in better because you've hired them based on their personality and their own personal traits rather than just skills. So they're going to fit into your team better. You're building their confidence so they like their job more. They don't want to leave. They want to be a part of your team. You're getting them to feel confident and happy where they are. Does it work 100% of the time? No. Does it give you the best possible chance? Yes. It also takes a lot of stress and pressure off you, but it is about putting in that time in that first 6 months with them. And when I say putting in the time, that doesn't mean hours and hours every day. It's putting in those little bit of extra time. It's that quality time working on the right things and helping them build their confidence. Because to get better team, you need to be a better leader. And your leadership starts in those initial stages. As I said in the podcast, we're going to talk about this topic way more. So we'll talk about leadership. We'll talk about ongoing training. We'll talk about having team or problems and things come. I'm bringing in experts in that field to interview as well. But prevention is better than cure. So step 1 is hiring better. So follow those 4 stages. If you haven't already signed up to the Franchisee Profit Pulse newsletter that comes out fortnightly, where I give you strategies and ideas to help you build your business to be more profitable, then just head over to my website at traceyleak.com and you can sign up for free. If you have a topic that you would really love for me to cover on the podcast, or if you have someone that you think that I should interview, or you personally want to be a guest on the podcast, also head over to the website, traceyleak.com, go to the podcast tab, and in there you can see that there's a suggestion of be a guest, and you can absolutely suggest a guest or suggest a topic that you would love for me to cover. Okay, I hope you keep following the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to wherever you're listening or watching the podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.